The morning alarm echoed through the dormitory halls of the Galactic Defense Academy, pulling hundreds of cadets from their sleep. Across Epsilon Prime Station, Ryan Cooper stretched in his bunk, his human muscles adjusting to the artificial gravity that the station maintained for the comfort of its diverse student body. Around him, cadets from 24 different species prepared for another day of training. Their various forms of communication, creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and spoken words that had become familiar background noise over the past year. Today felt different, though. Tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. As his grandmother used to say back on Earth, Ryan pulled on his academy uniform and headed to the central training hall where Instructor Velther had summoned all senior cadets for an important announcement. The massive Kryn warrior stood on the platform, his forearms crossed over his armored chest, his three eyes scanning the assembled students with an expression that had made countless cadets reconsider their career choices. Cadets, Velther's voice boomed through the hall without need for amplification. You have trained for one full cycle and proven yourselves worthy of consideration for graduation. A murmur rippled through the crowd. However, the instructor continued, his mandibles clicking in what might have been satisfaction or anticipation. One final test remains. The hall fell silent. Every cadet knew what was coming. The final qualification test was legendary throughout the academy, spoken about in hushed whispers and fearful tones. In 72 hours, you will be transported to Carvax Prime, Velther announced, and several cadets gasped audibly. Each of you will be dropped in a separate location on the jungle continent with minimal supplies and one emergency beacon. Ryan leaned forward slightly, interested. He had read about Carvax Prime in the Academy database during his research on extreme environment survival. Your task is simple. Survive for 3 planetary rotations and reach the extraction point. Velther's eyes gleamed. Carvax Prime is classified as a Class 7 death world. The reaction was immediate. A sharp-born cadet near Ryan began to shake, a crystalline body making a sound like wind chimes in a storm across the aisle. A Thalassy student activated his moisture suit's emergency protocols, his aquatic skin already showing signs of stress-induced color changes. Class 7, someone whispered behind Ryan. That is a death sentence. The gravity is 1.3 times standard, Velther continued, ignoring the rising panic. The atmosphere contains elevated oxygen levels and trace toxins. The wildlife is aggressive and highly adapted. The weather systems are violent and unpredictable. Ryan's roommate Zrix, a four-armed Tekken warrior who stood nearly 7 feet tall, turned to look at him with all 4 of his eyes wide. You understand what this means, yes? Zrix asked quietly, his translator struggling to convey his concern. 40% of cadets who attempt this test require medical extraction or worse. Ryan nodded calmly. I understand. Then why do you look so relaxed? Zrix demanded, his lower arms gesturing in confusion. This is Carvax Prime. The predators there can tear through durasteel. The plants secrete acids. The very rain can burn unprotected skin. Sounds challenging, Ryan agreed mildly around them. Other cadets were already planning, sharing survival techniques from their homeworlds, forming unofficial support networks. Despite the individual nature of the test, Lissa, the Shard-born cadet, was reviewing atmospheric adaptation protocols on her datapad with shaking hands. Kren, the Thalassy, was calculating exactly how much water his suit could recycle over 72 hours. The mood in the hall bordered on despair. Velther raised one of his primary arms for silence. You have 48 hours to prepare, he announced. Use them wisely, for they may be your last. The dismissal sent cadets scattering in every direction, some heading to the library to research Carvax Prime's ecosystem, others to the equipment depot to gather supplies, still others to private spaces where they could update Their final messages to their families. Ryan walked calmly back to his dormitory room and began organizing his gear with methodical precision. Rix burst in moments later, all 4 arms loaded with supplies. I have gathered extra ration packs, water purification tablets, 3 types of antivenom, emergency shelter materials, and backup beacon batteries, Rix announced, dumping everything on his bunk. You should do the same. Ryan glanced at his own small pack. Inside were basic items: a knife, fire starting kit, water container, basic first aid supplies, rope, and a compact shelter tarp. I think I am good. He said. Rix stared at him. That is all you are taking to a Class 7 death world? I do not need much, Ryan explained, checking his knife's edge. Most of what I need will be there. The gravity alone will crush you. Rix protested. You are from a low-gravity world, yes? Most species in the Academy are. Even I, bred for war on a heavy world, will struggle with 1.3 standard. Ryan paused, considering how to explain Earth's gravity is actually a bit higher than standard. He said carefully, this will feel lighter than home. Rix's translator must have malfunctioned because what came out made no sense. Your world has higher gravity than standard. Yeah, about 1.1 times what they call standard here, Ryan confirmed. So Carvax Prime will be heavier, but not by much. The Tekken warrior sat down hard on his bunk. What kind of world do you come from? Ryan shrugged. Just Earth. It is pretty normal where I am from. Over the next 2 days, the Academy became a hive of frantic preparation. Cadets attended special briefings on Carvax Prime's dangers, studied topographical maps, reviewed survival scenarios. Several cadets withdrew from the test entirely, choosing to repeat the year rather than face the death world. Ryan spent most of his preparation time in the gym, maintaining his conditioning, and in the library, reading about Carvax Prime's ecosystem with genuine interest. The planet reminded him of Earth during the Carboniferous period, with massive insects and dense vegetation, though the predators were significantly larger and more aggressive than anything from Earth's fossil record still. The basic principles would be the same. Find water, find shelter, avoid unnecessary confrontation, understand the environment on the morning of departure. 73 cadets assembled in the launch bay. They had started the year with 112 Edel. There walked among them, his experienced eyes assessing each student when he reached Ryan. He paused. Human, the instructor said, his voice low enough that only Ryan could hear. Your psychological profile shows no fear response to this test. Should I be afraid, sir? Ryan asked. Every rational being fears death, Velther replied. I do not plan on dying. Sir, the Kryn warrior studied him for a long moment. We shall see. Cadet Cooper, we shall see. The drop pods were arranged in neat rows, each one a small survival capsule designed to protect its occupant during atmospheric entry. Ryan climbed into his assigned pod, securing the harness across his chest through the small viewport. He could see Rix entering the pod next to his, the Tekken's face set in grim determination. The countdown began around the launch bay. Cadets whispered prayers, made final equipment checks, or simply sat in terrified silence. Ryan closed his eyes and thought about the camping trips his father had taken him on in the Australian outback, where the heat could kill in hours and every shadow might hide a venomous snake. He thought about survival training in the Rockies, where hypothermia was a constant threat. Thought about swimming in waters where sharks and jellyfish hunted. Carvax Prime would be dangerous. Certainly, but danger was relative. The launch sequence initiated pod by pod. The cadets were fired toward the planet below when Ryan's turn came. He felt the familiar pressure of acceleration, the brief moment of weightlessness, and then the violent shaking of atmospheric entry. Through the viewport, Carvax Prime grew larger. The jungle continent was a dark, green mass broken by rivers that gleamed. Like silver threads, storm systems churned across the equatorial region, it looked. Beautiful Ryan was smiling when his pod hit the ground. The impact drove the breath from Zrix's lungs, despite the pod's shock absorption systems. For a moment, he could only sit in the harness, trying to remember how to breathe in this thick, oppressive atmosphere when the pod's hatch finally opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The humidity hit him like a physical wall. Zrix forced himself to move, his forearms working to release the harness, even as his muscles screamed in protest. Against the graviton 0.3 times, standard should not feel this heavy. But every movement was like pushing through thick mud. He stumbled out of the pod and into hell. The jungle around him was alive with sound. Screeches, roars, clicking sounds that might have been communication or hunting. Calls. The canopy overhead was so thick that it filtered the sunlight into a dim red glow that made everything look like it was covered in blood. "Ancestors preserve me," Zrix muttered. Activating his emergency beacon as instructed, the device would transmit his location to the rescue teams but would not bring them early unless he triggered the emergency extraction sequence. That would mean failure, as Zrix had not come this far to fail. He checked his supplies. Water, rations, medical kit, shelter materials, everything was there. But suddenly, it all seemed woefully inadequate against the primal hostility of this place. A roar echoed through the jungle, close enough to make the leaves shake. Zrix grabbed his survival knife and backed against a tree, trying to identify the threat. Something large moved through the undergrowth 50 meters away. He caught glimpses of scaled hide, powerful limbs, teeth designed for tearing flesh. The creature had not spotted him yet, moving as quietly as his heavy frame allowed. Zrix retreated in the opposite direction, his heart pounding hard enough that he worried the predator might hear it across the jungle continent. Other cadets faced their own introductions to Kovacs. Prime Liss's pod had landed in a rocky outcropping near a river system. The Sharborn cadet emerged cautiously, her crystalline body immediately registering the humidity as a threat. Her species evolved in dry, arid environments where moisture was scarce. Here, the very air felt like it was trying to corrode her edges. She activated her environmental suit's dehumidifier, knowing it would drain power quickly, but having no choice. The river nearby looked deceptively peaceful until something massive breached the surface. A serpentine creature easily 20 meters long with rows of teeth visible. Even from this distance, Lissa marked the river as extremely dangerous in her mental map and began searching for higher ground where the humidity might be slightly less oppressive. Kren had perhaps the worst landing of all. The Thalasse's pod came down in a swamp region where the water was stagnant and filled with decay. His species needed regular immersion in clean water, and his moisture suit could only recycle and filter so much. The swamp water was toxic. His scanner confirmed concentrations of organic compounds that would poison him within minutes of exposure. He would have to find a clean water source, or his mission would end in 3 days regardless of other threats. The swamp itself was a nightmare of sounds and movements. Things slithered through the murky water, flying insects the size of his hand swarmed in clouds. Every shadow could hide a predator. Kren activated his beacon and began moving, his webbed feet struggling to find purchase in the sucking mud. Meanwhile, Ryan's pod had settled into a different section of swamp about 15 kilometers from Kren's position. The human emerged into the muggy air and immediately began whistling a tune his father had taught him years ago. The gravity felt heavy but manageable, like wearing a weighted vest during training. The humidity was high, but nothing compared to the Australian summers he had grown up enduring. Pulled his pack from the pod and began a systematic survey of his surroundings. The Swamp water was brackish and filled with organic material. Not immediately drinkable, but easily filtered, the vegetation was dense but showed clear patterns. Some plants grew in clusters where the water was shallower. Others marked deeper channels. Ryan identified several species of trees with leaves that could be tested for edibility, found insect larvae under rotting logs that would provide protein if needed within an hour of landing. He had established a basic understanding of the local ecosystem. A sound to his left made him turn. Something was moving through the water. Ryan crouched and watched as a massive amphibious creature emerged onto a muddy bank. It was easily 2 meters tall at the shoulder, with 6 powerful legs, a broad head filled with teeth, and eyes that tracked movement with predatory focus. The creature had not spotted him yet. Ryan slowly reached for a nearby vine and tested its strength. Satisfied, he began moving quietly toward a cluster of trees whose bark showed signs of natural thorns. The predator turned in his direction, nostrils flaring. Ryan kept moving, steady and calm when the creature charged, its 6 legs churning through the mud with surprising speed. Ryan was ready. He darted behind the thorn trees, and the predator, committed to its attack, could not stop in time. The creature impaled itself on dozens of natural spikes, its roar of pain and rage echoing across the swamp. Ryan waited until the struggle stopped, then carefully approached. The creature was dead. He studied it with interest, noting the muscle structure, the placement of vital organs, the adaptation of its limbs for both swimming and land movement. Ambush predator, he said to himself. Aggressive, but not particularly smart about it. He collected water from a cleaner section of the swamp, tested it with basic chemical indicators from his kit, and began the process of boiling it over a small fire he built using friction methods. By nightfall, Ryan had established a comfortable camp. His shelter was raised on a platform to avoid ground-level predators and positioned to allow quick escape routes if needed. He had food, fish caught from the river using a makeshift spear, and edible tubers identified through careful testing. His fire was small but sufficient, positioned to minimize smoke that might attract unwanted attention as the alien stars emerged overhead. Ryan lay in his shelter and listened to the jungle's night sounds. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the distress calls of creatures hunting and being hunted. His beacon showed other cadets' positions scattered across the continent. Several signals had already disappeared. Emergency extractions triggered by injuries or environmental failures. Ryan checked his supplies and found everything in order. Tomorrow he would explore further, map the region, establish alternative shelter locations. For now, though, he was content. The swamp reminded him of camping trips in the Everglades, though the wildlife here was admittedly more aggressive still. The principles were the same. Respect the environment, understand the threats, adapt to the conditions. Carvax Prime was dangerous, certainly, but danger was something Ryan had been training for his entire life. Even if the Academy did not realize, Ith closed his eyes and let the sounds of the alien jungle lull him toward sleep. A slight smile on his face, back on the station, Instructor Velther monitored the beacon. Signals with growing concern. 4 cadets had already triggered emergency extractions within the Canada. First 12 hours injuries ranged from severe lacerations to toxic exposure to simple panic attacks that made continuing impossible. Survival rate was tracking below historical average. Velther's eyes moved across the display, noting which cadets were stationary, hopefully sheltered, and which were mobile, possibly fleeing threats or searching for resources. One signal stood out. The human's beacon showed steady, controlled movement followed by a period of stationary activity that suggested successful camp establishment. The biometric data that the beacon transmitted showed normal heart rate, normal stress hormones, no signs of distress. Velther pulled up Earth's preliminary classification file again. Noting that it was still marked as incomplete, the Galactic Survey Corps had only visited humanity's homeworld briefly, and full environmental assessment took years still. Something about that planet troubled him. The gravity reading alone was unusual. Any species evolving in 1.1 standard gravity should produce individuals adapted for strength and endurance. The atmospheric composition was within normal parameters, but on the high side for oxygen concentration. Biodiversity index was marked with a warning flag. Preliminary counts suggested numbers that exceeded any known habitable world. Velther made a note to request the complete survey data. Something about the human cadets' complete lack of fear response to Carvax Prime suggested there was more to Earth than the preliminary reports indicated on the planet below. Ryan turned in his sleep, dreaming of home in his dreams. He was swimming in the ocean off the coast of Queensland, where the water was warm and clear and filled with creatures, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. It was a good dream when morning came. He would continue his mission, but for now, he was comfortable, safe, and completely at peace in a place that was driving his fellow cadets to the edge of survival. Day 2 on Carvax Prime began with disaster for most of the cadets. The storm system that the Academy's meteorological team had predicted arrived with devastating force, bringing winds that bent the massive jungle trees like grass and rain that burned any exposed skin with its acidic composition. Kren huddled in a shallow cave he had found, watching his moisture suit's water reserves drop to critical levels. The cave leaked, and every drop of the acid rain that touched his equipment left small marks of corrosion. His webbed hands shook as he checked his supplies. Maybe 30 hours of water left, and that was if he rationed carefully. The swamp outside had become a churning nightmare of flooded channels and thrashing predators driven to frenzy by the storm. There would be no safe travel until the weather cleared. Liss's situation was even more desperate. The short-born cadet had taken shelter in what appeared to be a natural cave system, only to discover too late that it was home to a colony of tunnel dwellers, segmented creatures with venomous stingers and a territorial nature. She had fled deeper into the caves, the creatures pursuing with single-minded aggression. Now she was lost in the darkness, her crystalline body cracked in 3 places from impacts against the stone walls, vital fluids leaking from the fissures. Her emergency beacon showed her moving erratically underground. She knew she should trigger the extraction sequence, but the thought of failing so close to graduation kept her pushing forward, searching desperately for an exit that might not exist. Rix had attempted to hunt for food in the early morning before the storm hit. The decision nearly killed him. A pack of raptor-like predators had ambushed him, 6 of them, each standing nearly as tall as his shoulder, with curved claws and intelligence that spoke of coordinated hunting tactics. Tekken Warrior's superior strength had saved him. His 4 arms allowed him to fight on multiple fronts, and his dense muscle mass let him withstand hits that would have killed most species. But victory came at a cost. Deep lacerations crossed his torso and arms. One of the raptors had bitten through his leg armor, leaving puncture wounds that were already showing signs of infection. Rix stumbled to a stream to clean his injuries, fever beginning to cloud his thoughts. He should trigger his emergency beacon. He knew this, but the thought of admitting defeat, of failing the test after coming so far, felt worse than the pain. He collapsed against a tree, trying to stay conscious, trying to think through the fever. His beacon showed another signal nearby. The human, through his delirium. Zrix wondered how Ryan was faring, probably dead by now. He thought sadly the human had seemed competent but unprepared. This world would have crushed him. Ryan, meanwhile, was having what he considered a productive morning. He had woken before dawn, checked his shelter for storm damage, minimal, and spent an hour reinforcing the structure with additional supports when the acid rain began. His preparations proved worthwhile. The shelters Roof channeled the water away through carefully. Constructed drainage systems, his position on raised ground. Prevented flooding, his gear was protected. Under layers of waterproof material salvaged from his drop pod, while the storm raged outside. Ryan organized his supplies, maintained his equipment, and reviewed his mental map of the region. His beacon showed several other cadets in distress. One signal had been stationary for 6 hours, likely injured or trapped. Another was moving in erratic patterns, possibly fleeing a threat or lost. Ryan made a decision that would have surprised his instructors. He was going to help. The test was individual survival, yes, but nothing in the rules prevented cadets from assisting each other, and Ryan had been raised to believe that you helped people in trouble when you could. He waited for a lull in the storm, then gathered medical supplies and extra water into a smaller pack. The closest distress signal was about 4 kilometers away. Through the jungle in these conditions would be dangerous, but Ryan had trained for worse. He set out, using his knowledge of the terrain to avoid flooded areas and unstable ground. The journey took 2 hours when Ryan found Zrix. The Tekken was barely conscious, fever making him hallucinate. "Easy there," Ryan said, kneeling beside the massive alien. "I am here to help." Zrix's eyes focused slowly. "Human? You are alive." "Very much so," Ryan confirmed, examining the wounds. "These are infected. We need to clean them properly." He built a small fire under a rocky overhang that provided shelter from the rain, boiled water from his supply, and carefully cleaned each laceration. The antiseptic paste he created from local plants he had tested the previous day worked effectively. A combination of tree bark with natural antibiotic properties and clay that drew out infections. Rix watched in amazement as Ryan worked with calm efficiency. "How are you doing this?" the Tekken asked, his translator struggling through the fever. "Doing what?" "Surviving. Thriving. You should be dead or begging for extraction." Ryan shrugged, wrapping the cleaned wounds with strips of fabric from his emergency supplies. "This place is dangerous, sure, but it is not that bad once you understand it." "Not that bad?" Zrix's voice rose despite his weakness. "This is a Class 7 death world." "Yeah, I read about those," Ryan said conversationally, offering Zrix some of his water. "Carvax Prime has some impressive predators and challenging environmental conditions. And this does not frighten you?" Ryan considered the question while adding wood to the fire. "I grew up in Australia," he said finally. "We have spiders whose venom can kill you in minutes. Snakes that hide in your shoes, jellyfish that will stop your heart, crocodiles that can bite through metal, sharks in the water, and heat that can cook you alive if you are not careful." Zrix stared at him. "Your world has all of these things?" "Among others," Ryan confirmed. "Then I did survival training in the Rockies, where you can freeze to death in hours. And marine training, where they drop you in the ocean for days at a time." "Your training is on death worlds?" "No, just on Earth," Ryan said, confused. "Earth is rated pretty normal as far as I know." He shared some of his foraged food with Zrix, fish and edible plants that tasted strange but provided necessary nutrition while Zrix ate and slowly recovered. Ryan checked his beacon. Another signal was in trouble. "Underground. Moving erratically. I should keep moving," Ryan said. "There are others who need help." "You are going to help more cadets?" Zrix asked. "If I can, why not? Because this is a test of individual survival." Ryan looked at the Tekken with genuine confusion. "So? Just because we are being tested individually does not mean we cannot help each other, right? The rules say survive and reach extraction. They do not say ignore people in trouble." He left Zrix with extra water and instructions to keep the wounds. Tekken watched him disappear into the jungle, his forearms trembling slightly. Either the human was insane, Or there was something fundamentally different about his species, something that let him treat a Class 7 death world like a challenging camping trip. Ryan found Lissa 3 hours later. Trapped in a cave system with the tunnel dwellers closing in, he used smoke from burning plants to drive the creatures back. Then helped the injured Shardborn navigate back to the surface. Her cracks were severe, but he sealed them with tree resin that hardened into a temporary patch. "Why are you helping me?" Lissa asked, her voice tinged with crystalline harmonics that spoke of confusion. "Because you needed help," Ryan answered simply. Next, he tracked down Kren, who was on the verge of dehydration. Ryan showed him how to identify clean water sources and construct a basic filtration system using sand, charcoal, and cloth. The Thalassy refilled his moisture suit with tears of gratitude, and all three of his eyes. Word began to spread through the emergency communication network. The human was mobile. The human was thriving. The human was helping cadets who had considered triggering their emergency extractions. Reconsidered if the human could move through this nightmare environment with confidence. Maybe survival was possible. Back on Epsilon Prime Station, Instructor Velther watched Ryan's beacon track between distress signals with growing fascination. The human was not just surviving. He was running rescue operations. Velther pulled up Earth's classification file with renewed urgency and began reading the preliminary environmental data more carefully. 1.1 times. Standard atmospheric oxygen, 21%. Elevated weather systems, violent and unpredictable tectonic activity, high biodiversity. Warning flag, preliminary counts exceed. Parameters, natural hazards, extensive list, including venomous species, apex predators, extreme temperatures, violent storms, seismic events. The file was incomplete, still being processed by the survey corps, but what was there made Velther blood run cold. He accessed the classification guidelines and ran the numbers. Class 7 was defined by specific parameters of danger. Its preliminary data exceeded those parameters significantly. Requested an emergency update from the survey corps, marking it priority urgent. The response came back within minutes. Earth's full classification was still weeks away from completion, but early estimates suggested Class 12, possibly higher. Velther looked at the monitoring screen where Ryan's beacon showed the human establishing a central camp, gathering injured cadets, providing medical care and shelter. They had dropped a Deathworld apex predator onto a lesser world and expected him to struggle. The irony would have been funny if it were not so terrifying. What kind of species evolved on a world that made Class 7 seem gentle? What kind of training prepared someone to treat mortal danger as routine? By the morning of Day 3, Ryan had established what could only be described as a refugee camp. 7 cadets now occupied the defensible position. He had selected a rocky outcropping with clear sightlines, multiple escape routes, and access to clean waters. Rix was recovering quickly under Ryan's care. The Tekken's natural healing abilities accelerated by proper wound treatment and adequate nutrition. Lissa's resin patches held strong, and she had even begun helping with camp tasks. Her crystalline form ideal for precise cutting and shaping of materials. Kren had his moisture suit functioning at full capacity again and was using his aquatic abilities to catch fish from the nearby river. 4 other cadets had joined them: 2 Valkyrie scouts, a Dren engineer, and a Quallen medic who had sustained injuries during landing. Each had arrived at the camp expecting to find minimal survival conditions. Instead, they found organized shelters, a reliable food supply, water purification systems, and a human who seemed genuinely happy to see them. "I do not understand this," said Corvin, one of the Valkyrie scouts, his fur-lined features showing confusion. You should be dead, human, or at least desperate. Ryan was busy preparing the morning meal, a combination of foraged plants, fish, and some edible fungi he had identified the previous day. Why should I be desperate? He asked. Because this is Carvax Prime. Coven gestured at the jungle around them, a Class 7 death world where everything wants to kill us. Well, not everything, Ryan said reasonably. These fish do not seem aggressive. Most of the plants are just plants. And if you understand predator behavior, they are pretty predictable. The Quellan medic, whose name was Shara, approached Ryan with her scanning equipment. May I examine you? She asked, her gentle voice carrying genuine curiosity. I wish to understand how your physiology handles this environment. Ryan shrugged and allowed the scan Shara's. Eyes widened as she reviewed the results. Your muscle density is extraordinary, she said. Your cardiovascular system is operating at peak efficiency, despite the heavy gravity. Your body temperature regulation is managing the heat and humidity with minimal stress. That seems normal, Ryan said. Normal? Shara showed him the scan data. Your species has adaptations I have only seen in specialized military breeding programs. And you claim this is natural? I mean, I work out regularly, but yeah. This is pretty standard for humans. Before Shara could respond, the jungle around them went silent. Every cadet froze in nature. Silence meant danger. Ryan moved smoothly to his feet, his hand reaching for the spear he had crafted from local materials. Everyone to the shelters, he said quietly, his voice carrying calm authority. Weapons ready. The thing that emerged from the jungle was Nightmare, made flesh and alpha stalker, the apex predator of Carvax Prime. 12 feet of muscle, scale, and predatory intelligence. Its armored hide gleamed dark green in the filtered sunlight. Each of its 6 legs ended in claws that could tear through metal. Its head was all teeth and hunting instincts, refined over millions of years, and it was not alone. 3 more stalkers emerged from different positions, surrounding the camp. Pack hunters, intelligent pack hunters. Lissa began to pray in her crystalline language. The sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. Nezrix gripped his combat knife, knowing it was inadequate, but refusing to die without a fight. Kren activated his emergency extraction beacon, accepting failure as the price of survival. Everyone stay calm, Ryan said, his voice steady. I have been tracking this pack since yesterday. I know what they are going to do. You have been tracking them? Zrix's voice cracked. Why did you not warn us? Because I wanted to study them before they attacked, Ryan explained. They hunt in coordination. 2 will charge from the front to draw attention, while the other 2 flank from the sides. Their armored hide is strongest on the dorsal surface, but weaker on the belly and throat. They rely on speed and shock, but are not particularly agile in dense terrain. How does this help us? Corvin demanded, his claws extended in preparation for death. Because I prepared for this, Ryan said, and whistled sharply. The sound was a signal around the camp. Simple traps he had spent the past day constructing. Activated snares made from vine cables snapped tight, waited. Logs swung down from the tree's pitfalls opened up, covered earlier with light branches and leaves. The alpha stalker leading the pack charged, its massive form moving with terrible speed. Ryan threw a burning branch directly at its face, the fire causing it to flinch and alter its path. Slightly, just enough, the creature stepped directly into a camouflaged pit lined with sharpened stakes. Its roar of pain and rage echoed. Across the jungle, the second stalker moved to flank, but Zrix, understanding Ryan's strategy now, drove it toward another prepared trap. A falling log caught the predator across its back legs, not killing it but severely limiting its mobility. Ryan moved then, not away from danger but toward Ive, grabbed a longer spear he had hidden near the camp perimeter and advanced on the third stalker. The creature, confused by prey that attacked rather than fled, hesitated, That hesitation was fatal. Ryan used the terrain to his advantage, leading the stalker between two close-growing trees that limited its movement when it lunged. He was already moving, the spear driving up under its jaw where the armor was weakest. The creature thrashed, nearly pulling the spear from Ryan's hands, but he held on, using the predator's own momentum against it. The stalker collapsed, the fourth and final predator, seeing 3 pack members down and 1 prey creature who fought like something from its own nightmares, made the intelligent decision to retreat. Ryan let it go, breathing hard but grinning. "Everyone okay?" He called out. The camp was silent except for shocked breathing. Then Zrix started laughing, a sound that came from all 4 of his lungs. "You are insane, human. Absolutely insane." "Did that just happen?" Lissa asked, her crystalline voice showing harmonics of disbelief. "Did we just survive an Alpha Stalker pack? Did you plan this entire camp position based on the possibility of that attack?" Shara asked, her medical scanner still clutched in trembling hands. Ryan shrugged, checking his spear for damage. "I saw their tracks yesterday and figured they might try something. So I prepared some defenses. Basic tactics, really." "Basic tactics?" Corvin repeated flatly. "You killed an Alpha Stalker with basic tactics. Well, I mostly used its own aggression against it," Ryan explained. "The key is understanding that most predators rely on intimidation and shock. If you deny them that advantage and control the engagement space, even a smaller opponent can win." He looked at the gathered cadets, noting their expressions ranging from awe to outright fear. "What?" he asked. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Zrix demanded. "Marine Corps training, some martial arts, and a lot of camping in places where you had to respect the local wildlife," Ryan said. "Plus my dad was big on teaching practical survival skills." "Your father taught you to hunt apex predators?" "No, he taught me to understand animal behavior, avoid unnecessary fights, and stack advantages when fights were unavoidable," Ryan clarified. "The specific techniques I learned in formal training." Shara approached him again, her scanner active. "I need to understand," she said. "Where is Earth classified? What level of Deathworld produces warriors like you?" Ryan frowned. "Earth is not a Deathworld. It is just Earth." "Humor me," Shara said. "What is the gravity?" "About 1.1 standard, I think." "And the dangers?" Ryan considered. "Well, we have some venomous species. Predators in certain regions. Weather can be dangerous if you are not prepared. Some areas have temperature extremes, earthquakes, and volcanoes in tectonically active zones. Diseases if you are not vaccinated. And you consider this normal? I mean, every planet has challenges, right?" Shara turned to the others. "I am going to request Earth's full classification data," she said, "because I suspect we have been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding." The rescue ships arrived 6 hours later, descending through Carvax Prime's atmosphere to collect the surviving cadets. 73 had started the test. 31 were being extracted, some with injuries, others with simple equipment failures or environmental stress. 32 had completed the full 72 hours of those 32. 8 were at Ryan's camp, the rescue team that landed at the camp, expected to find desperate, exhausted cadets barely clinging to survival instead. They found an organized operation with shelters, food stores, medical care, and a dead Alpha Stalker being studied by a human who wanted to understand its anatomy. The team leader, a veteran Kryn warrior named Vex, stood and stared. "What happened here?" he asked. "We survived," Zrix said proudly, gesturing at Ryan. "Because the human showed us how." Vex looked at Ryan, who was busy helping the injured cadets board the transport. "Human," Vex called. "Did you kill that Alpha Stalker?" "Technically, it killed itself by being predictable," Ryan answered. "I just provided the circumstances." Vex had been running rescue operations on Carvax Prime for 15 cycles, He had seen countless cadets broken by this world. He had never seen one smiling while helping others into a transport ship. Your name? Ryan Cooper, sir. Well, Cadet Cooper, Dex said slowly. You have set a new standard for this test. Ryan looked genuinely surprised. I just did what needed to be done. Sir, as the transport lifted off from Carvax Prime surface, Ryan looked out the viewport at the jungle below. It had been a challenging 3 days. Certainly, but also educational, and in its own way, beautiful. The medical bay on Epsilon Prime Station was chaos when the rescue ships docked injured. Cadets were rushed to treatment facilities, while medical staff shouted orders and equipment beeped urgent warnings. Ryan stepped off his transport without assistance, carrying his pack and helping a limping Valkyrie scout who had sprained an ankle on day 1. The contrast was impossible to ignore. Alien cadets on stretchers, covered in bandages, showing signs of exhaustion, trauma, and environmental stress. One human, walking calmly with minor cuts already healing, looking like he had returned from a pleasant hiking trip. Instructor Velther waited at the landing bay, his 3 eyes taking in every detail when Ryan approached. The Kryn warrior held up one armored hand. Cadet Cooper, Velther said formally. Report to my office in 1 hour. Medical clearance first. Yes, sir. The medical examination took 15 minutes. The doctor, a Thalassy physician named Wen, kept running the scans multiple times as if the equipment was malfunctioning. Your vitals are perfect, Wen said finally, his translator conveying disbelief. Better than when you left, actually. You seem to have gained muscle mass. The heavy gravity was good exercise, Ryan explained. You treated this as exercise? I mean, I also focused on survival. But yeah, the physical challenge was beneficial. Wen made several notes in Ryan's file, then added a priority flag requesting a full human baseline study. Something about this species defied normal biological parameters. Ryan showered, changed into a fresh uniform, and reported to Velther's office exactly 1 hour after landing. The instructor's office was sparse. A desk, several chairs designed for different species physiologies, and walls covered with commendations from decades of military service. Velther gestured to a chair. Sit. Cadet Cooper. Ryan sat. The Kryn warrior studied him for a long moment. Do you know what you have done? Velther asked finally. Completed the test, sir? You have challenged every assumption we hold about Deathworld survival, Velther said, activating a holographic display that showed Ryan's beacon track across Carvax Prime. In 73 cycles of running this test, no cadet has ever performed rescue operations. No cadet has ever established a base camp with multiple survivors. No cadet has ever killed an alpha stalker. I did not realize those were unusual achievements. Sir, they are not unusual. They are unprecedented, Velther corrected. Which brings me to a question. What is Earth's true classification? Ryan frowned. I am not sure what you mean. Sir, Velther pulled up a file on his display. Earth's preliminary survey data. This planet, he said, pointing at the holographic representation of Ryan's homeworld, has characteristics that exceed Class 7 parameters. The full classification is still being processed, but early estimates suggest Class 12. Ryan looked at the data, then at Velther. What does that mean? It means, Cadet Cooper, that you evolved on one of the most hostile environments in known space, Velther explained. Class 12 worlds are rare, high gravity, violent weather systems, extreme biodiversity, tectonic instability. The combination creates an environment that should not support complex life, let alone spacefaring intelligence. But Earth is beautiful, Ryan protested. We have oceans and forests and mountains. Sure, there are dangerous areas, but there are also safe places. By whose standard? Velther asked gently. Cadet, Your safe places would terrify most species in the galactic community. He showed Ryan comparison data. Earth's average gravity versus standard. Earth's weather intensity versus habitable norms. Earth's predator diversity versus typical worlds. Each metric showed Earth far exceeding what was considered survivable. Your species, Velther continued, evolved in an environment of constant challenge. You develop persistence hunting, the ability to chase prey until it collapses from exhaustion. You develop tactical thinking, the capacity to plan complex strategies over extended timeframes. You developed adaptability, the skill to survive in nearly any environment. Every intelligent species has those traits. Ryan said, "Not to this degree," Velther replied. "Most species evolved in relatively stable environments. They specialize for specific niches. Humans generalize for survival. You are endurance predators, shaped by a world that gave no quarter." Ryan sat back, processing this information. "So when I was on Carvax Prime, you were on a world significantly less dangerous than your homeworld." Velther confirmed. "Imagine if I took you from a combat zone and placed you in a training facility. Would you feel challenged?" "That explains a lot," Ryan admitted. Over the next few days, word spread through the academy and beyond the human who smiled on a Class 7 death world, cadet from Earth, who treated mortal danger as routine news services across the galactic community. Picked up the story. Ryan found himself giving interviews, trying to explain that he was not special. He was just trained properly, but the evidence contradicted his modesty. Footage from the rescue team's cameras showed him calmly discussing the Alpha Stalker's anatomy. Medical reports detailed his complete lack of environmental stress. Testimony from the cadets he saved painted a picture of someone who thrived where others barely survived. The Galactic Defense Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications if one human could perform this well. What could humanity as a whole contribute to galactic security? Recruitment offers flooded in from military organizations. Across known space elite units wanted humans for special operations. Exploration services wanted humans for first contact missions on dangerous worlds. Security companies offered contracts with salaries that made Ryan laugh at their absurdity. He turned most of them down politely. He had come to the academy to learn, to grow, to represent his species with honor. Money and glory held little appeal compared to genuine accomplishment. The academy's administration made changes based on Ryan's performance. The final test would continue using Carvax Prime for non-human cadets, but a new protocol was established for human cadets. A different location would be required, somewhere more appropriate to their capabilities, somewhere that would actually challenge them. The search was ongoing. Class 12 worlds were rare, and most were considered too dangerous even for automated survey missions. Meanwhile, Ryan completed his remaining coursework with the same quiet competence he brought to everything. His classmates treated him differently now, with respect, with caution, and in some cases with outright fears. Rix remained a friend, though the Tekken warrior now understood that arm wrestling matches with Ryan were exercises in futility. Lissa studied human culture extensively, fascinated by a species that wrote poetry about dangerous animals and called extreme sports fun. Krem became an advocate for human-alien cooperation, giving lectures about how Ryan's assistance had saved his life. The graduation ceremony took place 3 months after the Carvax Prime test. 70 cadets received their commissions as officers in various military and exploration services. Ryan stood with his class, wearing his dress uniform, trying not to think about all the attention focused on him. When Velther called his name, the applause was thunderous. Cadet Ryan Cooper, Velther announced, graduated with highest honors, recipient of the Survival Excellence Award. and the first human to complete the Galactic Defense Academy program, Ryan accepted his commission and the various awards. Shaking Velther's armored hand. "You have changed things, Cadet Cooper," Velther said quietly. "The galaxy will never look at humanity the same way. I just did my best." "Sir, that," Velther replied, "is precisely what frightens them after graduation." Ryan took a brief leave to return to Earth. Landing in Sydney felt strange after months in space. The gravity felt light, almost like floating. The air smelled of ocean and eucalyptus. Home. His father met him at the transport station. Aged but still strong, wearing the same weathered hat he had worn on countless camping trips. "Welcome back, son." They embraced, and Ryan felt something release in his chest. "Dad," he said, "they tell me Earth is one of the most dangerous planets in known space." His father laughed. "Did they just figure that out?" "You knew?" "Ryan, I have been watching the galactic news broadcasts. Every other world they show looks like a holiday resort compared to here. Even their death worlds look gentle." They walked to the car, and Ryan looked around at the familiar landscape. Dangerous. The galaxy called it hostile, unsurvivable, extreme to Ryan. It was just home. The next year's academy enrollment saw a dramatic increase in human applicants. Earth had been recognized as a major military power, not because of ships or weapons, but because of its people. Humans who could survive anywhere. Humans who helped others even in crisis. Humans who smiled. In the face of danger, the galactic community established new protocols for human integration, specialized training programs, cultural exchange initiatives, joint operations between human and alien forces. And through it all, one truth became clear to every species in known space: never underestimate a being from Earth. They had already survived the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. Everything else was just practice on Epsilon Prime Station. A new class of cadets assembled for orientation. Among them were 12 humans. Their presence a testament to how much had changed in one short year. Instructor Velther addressed them, his three eyes scanning the mixed group. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy," he began. "You have been selected because you demonstrate the potential for excellence, the capacity for sacrifice, and the courage to face danger." Paused, his gaze settling on the human contingent.